Everyone laughed when she said the little dog was acting strange around the baby. They stopped laughing when the blood work came back. Pepper was a 4-year-old miniature dachshund, 8 pounds at her heaviest, with the kind of expressive face that made strangers crouch down on sidewalks. She was low to the ground, enthusiastic about almost everything. It had been the primary emotional companion of Vivian Nakamura since before Vivian's husband Elliot had entered the picture. When their son Remy arrived, Pepper adjusted with minimal drama. She slept near his crib. She watched him with a kind of attention that looked like love, which it probably was. Then Remy turned 4 months old, and Pepper's attention became something else. It started with the crying. Not every time Remy cried, specifically the crying that came in the late afternoon, between 3 and 5 p.m., when he would develop a fussiness that had a different texture from his usual cries, longer, higher, the kind that vibrated in the sternum. During those cries, Pepper would leave wherever she was in the house and come to stand directly beneath his bouncy chair, her small nose working rapidly. Her entire attention focused upward on the baby above her. She never jumped. She never touched. She just stood there, reading the air beneath him with a focus that Vivian eventually started calling the pose. Elliot said she was just worried about him. Dogs pick up on distress in the household. Perfectly normal. Vivian was a graphic designer. She was not a medical professional. She had no framework that would have led her to the interpretation she eventually reached. What she had was the specific detail that Pepper's behavior was timed. It wasn't every cry. It was those cries, the late afternoon ones, the ones that looked different on Remy's face than the other ones. Mentioned it to her sister on the phone. Her sister said maybe the dog was just reacting to the time of day. Dogs have internal clocks. Vivian said she didn't think that was it. She couldn't explain why. She just kept watching Pepper watch Remy. On the 14th day, Vivian took Remy to his 4-month wellness check and described the crying pattern to their pediatrician, Dr. Anselm Carrington. She also, somewhat hesitantly, mentioned Pepper's behavior. She expected him to smile the way people smiled when she brought up the dog. He didn't smile. He ordered blood work. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The results came back 48 hours later. Remy had a rare metabolic condition, an enzyme deficiency affecting his ability to process certain nutrients efficiently. The condition was highly manageable with dietary adjustment and supplementation. The late afternoon crying was consistent with the compound cycle of the deficiency. To the point in the day when the body's reserves from morning feeding had depleted and the inability to process replacement nutrients caused a cascade of physical discomfort. Dr. Carrington called them from his office. He said Remy would be fine with proper management, and he said they'd caught it early enough that the intervention would be straightforward. He said, "What made you come in?" and mentioned the afternoon pattern specifically. Vivian said, "The dog." There was a pause on the line. He said, "Tell me about that." She told him about the pose, about the timing, about Pepper standing beneath the bouncy chair with her nose working in that specific focused way during exactly those cries and no others. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something she wrote down afterward. Dog's olfactory system can detect metabolic byproducts in exhaled breath and skin emissions at concentrations humans cannot perceive. In a condition like Remy's, those byproducts would be elevated during the depletion window in the afternoon. If the dog was responding consistently and specifically to that window, that is not nothing. That is a data point. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Remy began his treatment protocol that week. The afternoon crying changed within 10 days. Shorter, easier, more like his other cries, and less like the ones that had been timed to the depletion window. Vivian noticed Pepper's behavior change at the same time, before she'd consciously tracked the improvement in the crying. Pepper stopped doing the pose. She would still come to where Remy was during a cry. But the focused, locked-in, nose-reading stillness had changed back to the ordinary dog concerned about a loud noise version. The alarm had been stood down. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Vivian kept the small piece of paper where she'd written down what Dr. Carrington said about olfactory systems and metabolic byproducts. She put it on the refrigerator. Elliot asked why. She said, "Because I want to remember to listen to the small dog." The next story involves a Labrador who wouldn't let the family use the upstairs bathroom, and the reason they found behind the wall. Pepper currently sleeps against Remy's crib rail on the side nearest the door. She has slept there every night since he came home. Remy is 8 months old now and has a name for her in the soft sounds he makes before words. Vivienne knows it's her name. Pepper acts like she knows it too.